so I watched this ad, and then I spent the rest of like the weekend just reading up on Andrew Yang, watching YouTube videos, learning all I could about him. And by the time that was done, I did what any rational person would do, and I got these, as Kevin said, these giant Yang 2020 decals, and I put them on my Jeep, and I headed to Iowa. Because I really had to tell you guys about Andrew Yang. Because this is the most important election of our lifetime. And it's not just because Donald Trump is up for re-election. It's also because under Andrew Yang, ending abject poverty is literally on the ballot in 2020. I'd like to welcome Mayor Dean Andrews.
Thank you. I'm not going to take too long here this morning, but we're always fortunate in Iowa to be able to have all these candidates come and be able to see them up close and personal, as they say. So today I want to make sure that we give a proudly welcome to Andrew Yang. It's nice to have another one of the candidates in town. I'm going to turn the mic over. I say I don't have a lot to say, except for I really want to welcome Mr. Yang to town. But I'm going to introduce Bob Frost, who's going to actually introduce Mr. Yang. So Bob.
Good morning. I can tell you guys are from Iowa because you made it. A little bit of weather didn't stop yet. Did anybody see the Bill Maher show this last weekend? Okay. Yeah, he did an excellent job on there, I thought. You never know where a show like that's going to go, but he seems to handle himself real well. So if he can do that, he should be able to run the countryside. Anybody could be better than what we have, including me. So without further ado, let's welcome Mr. Yang. I'm not sure where he's at today.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning, Charles City. It's phenomenal to be here. Thank you so much. I love campaigning here in Iowa because you all have the future of the country in your hands in a way that's the envy of the rest of the country. This is one of the only places where democracy still works the way it's intended. I did the math. Do you know how many Californians each of you is worth? About 1,000 Californians each. So if you look around this room today, how many of us are there? I'm going to give a Trumpian estimate. There are about 400 people. I think there are about 50 people. But 50 people would still be a football stadium worth of Californians. That's the power you all have to move this country in a new direction. That's why I love campaigning here so much. Now, most of you know I'm not a politician by trade. I'm an entrepreneur and problem solver. And I'm here to solve the problem that we've been struggling with as a country for the last several years now. And it's this. Why is Donald Trump our president? Oh, really? Think about that for a second. And this is tough because this is very much an Iowa question. How did Iowa go to Trump by almost 10 points when Iowa is a very, very purple state, traditional swing state? And then it went very, very sharply to Trump. Now, if you turned on cable news at any time in the last number of years, why would you think that Donald Trump is our president today? This is a thinker, right?
Misinformation.
Misinformation.
Corporation.
Corporation? Yeah, corporate.
Russia.
Russia, that's definitely on the list, right?
Divided Democratic Party.
The DNC, Hillary Clinton, emails, Facebook, FBI, Bernie, Electoral College, all sort of mixed together into this strange cocktail, right? So this is why Trump is our president. But I'm a math guy. I went through the numbers, and the numbers tell a very clear and compelling story that I think you'll find familiar. The reason why Donald Trump is our president today is that we blasted away 4 million manufacturing jobs over the last number of years. And where were those jobs based? Ohio, Michigan, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, Missouri, and 40,000 right here in Iowa. I have been to those towns in Iowa that lost their manufacturing jobs, and after the plant closed, then the shopping district closed, then people left, the school shrank, and that community has never recovered. I spent the last 7 years helping to create several thousand jobs in the Midwest and the South, primarily. And I saw the same thing play out in these towns in Missouri, Pennsylvania, Michigan, Ohio. For whatever reason, we're not reckoning with the core economic drivers of Trump's victory. And if you doubt this explanation, there's actually a straight line up between the automation of manufacturing jobs in a voting area and the movement to Trump in that area. Unfortunately, what we did to those manufacturing jobs, we're now going to do to other jobs throughout the economy. How many of you have noticed stores closing around where you work and live here in Charles City? And why are those stores closing? Amazon, that's right. Amazon's soaking up $20 billion in business every year, closing 30% of your stores and malls. Most common job in the economy is retail clerk. Average retail clerk is a 39-year-old woman making between $8 and $12 an hour. What is her next job when the store closes? Hard to know. How much did Amazon pay in federal taxes last year? Zero. That is your math, Charles City. 20 billion out, 30% of your stores closed, you get zero back. Now these changes you can see around you with the stores closing, but they're even more pervasive than that. When you all call the customer service line of a big company and you get the bot or software on the other end, I'm sure you do the same thing I do, which is you pound 000, say human, representative, until you get someone on the other line. How many of you do that? Oh yeah, that software is terrible. You're like, I hope this company still employs a human somewhere because I'm going to find them right now. But in 2 or 3 short years, the software is going to sound like this. Hello, Andrew, how's it going? What can I do for you? It'll be fast, efficient, friendly. You might not even know it's software. What is that going to mean for the 2.5 million Americans who work at call centers right now making between $10 and $14 an hour? How many of you know a truck driver here in Iowa? It's the most common job in 29 states, 3.5 million truckers. My friends in California are working on trucks that can drive themselves. They say they're 98% of the way there. A robot truck just transported 20 tons of butter from California to Pennsylvania with no human intervention 3 weeks ago. Why did they choose butter for this maiden voyage? I have no idea. But if you Google robot butter truck, this story will pop up. And there was a giant stack of pancakes in Pennsylvania. That was all true except the pancakes. So, what will this mean for the 3.5 million truckers or the 7 million Americans who work in truck stops, motels, and diners that rely upon the truckers getting out and having a meal every day? How many of you have been to Iowa 80 in Davenport? Yeah, me too. It's got a really good buffet. It says that 5,000 people stop there every day. How many people will stop there when the trucks no longer have drivers? Well, maybe we'll stop, but it's going to go down from 5,000, that's for sure. We're in the midst of the greatest economic transformation in the history of our country, what experts are calling the Fourth Industrial Revolution. Chances are you've never even heard the term Fourth Industrial Revolution until just now. And I'm barely a politician. My wife has been campaigning with me the last number of days and weeks and months now. And we joke that if she thought I was going to run for president when we were dating, she would run the other direction. It's not a very normal behavior. So Trump wins in 2016. I had the same reaction many of you did, which is like, what the heck just happened? Like tens of millions of our fellow Americans decided to take a bet on the narcissist reality TV star. This is not business as usual. This is like very much red flag territory. And I was the guy who got medals and awards for helping create thousands of jobs around the country. And I saw that my work was like pouring water into a bathtub that had a giant hole ripped in the bottom. Like the water's rushing out. Trump gets elected. Our country does not understand what's happening to it. So I go to our leaders in DC in 2017. I say, what are we going to do to help our people manage this transition? And what do you think the folks in DC said to me when I said, what are we going to do? Yeah, the Scooby-Doo like, whoa. Yeah, the 3 responses I got were, Andrew, we cannot talk about this. That's verbatim. That's helpful, right? Number 2, we should study this further. And number 3, we must educate and retrain all Americans for the jobs of the future. How many of you have heard something like that at a politician? And it sounds sort of responsible, but then you dig into the numbers. You all want to guess how effective the government-funded retraining programs were for the manufacturing workers who lost their jobs in the Midwest? You know it's low because I'm anchoring you low. But you also know it's low because you know human beings. You know that if you have 500 manufacturing workers who lose their jobs, they don't all march out and be like, oh good, set me up for my coding boot camp. I'll be coding in no time. Like, that's not the way human beings operate. The success rates were between 0 and 15%. The reality is that almost half of the manufacturing workers who lost their jobs left the workforce and never worked again. And of that group, half filed for disability. You then saw surges in suicides and drug overdoses in those communities, to the point where America's life expectancy has now declined for the last 3 years in a row. You know the last time America's life expectancy declined for 3 years in a row? Great Depression is a very good guess.
Spanish flu.
Spanish flu of 1918, that's right. A global pandemic that killed millions 100 years ago. You have to go that far back because it's highly unusual for your life expectancy to decline in a developed country. It ordinarily goes up and up because you're getting wealthier, stronger, healthier, but in the US it's gone down and then down and then down again. So when I said this to the folks in DC, one of them said, well, I guess we'll get better at retraining. Another person said something that brought me here to you all this fine morning here in Charles City. He said, Andrew, no one here is going to do anything about this. Because fundamentally, DC is a town of followers, not leaders. And the only way we would do anything about it is if you were to create a wave in other parts of the country and bring that wave crashing down on our heads. And I said, challenge accepted. I'll be back in 2 years. So now, you all are the wave. You get to actually help rewrite the rules of this economy to work for us, to work for you, to work for your families on February 3rd. I came out of nowhere. Most of you had never heard of me until probably pretty recently. How many of you saw a TV ad with the campaign on it? This would make me very happy because we spent a lot of money on those ads. Well, I went from total anonymity to raising $16.5 million last quarter in increments of only $35 each. So my fans are almost as cheap as Bernie's. It's just math, it's just math. But there's no corporate PAC money in that $16.5 million. It's just everyday Americans saying we need to actually take control of our government and get it working for us again. Because who does our government work for now? A combination of themselves and the corporate interests that have had the run of the place for years now. That's one reason why what you can do on February 3rd is so important. Because the rest of our fellow Americans look up and see our federal government as a series of pipes clogged full of money, clogged full of lobbyist cash, and they fear there's nothing they can do about it. They're generally right. There's very little to nothing they can do about it. Only you can flush the pipes clean. Only you can actually help put someone at the top of the government that owes nothing to the corporate interest, not a dime, and will take all the money that's fleeing your communities and bring it back to you. So you have Amazon and these other companies profiting to the tune of billions and billions of dollars. A study just came out that said that your data, our data, is now worth more than oil. How many of you saw that study? How many of you got a data check in the mail last month? So if your data is now worth billions of dollars a year and you're not getting a dime of that, who is getting all that money? Amazon, Facebook, Google, Apple, Microsoft, the trillion-dollar tech companies that are paying zero or near zero back into our society. That's why you have this sinking feeling that you're being depleted, because you are. How many of you all are parents like me and Evelyn? If you're a parent, you have had this sinking feeling that we're leaving our kids a future that is less stable, less secure, less prosperous than the lives that we have led. And you think about that often in terms of climate change, which is a part of it, but it's also true in their prospects for the future. If you were born in the 1940s in the United States of America, there was a 93% chance you're going to be better off than your parents. That's the American dream that brought my family here. That's what we all want to leave to our kids. But if you were born in the 1990s in this country, you're down to a 50-50 shot at doing better than your parents, and it's declining fast. That's why the parents in this room feel the way we do. Because we're leaving our kids very, very shaky ground to stand on. This is why Trump won Iowa by almost 10 points. Because if people look up and they're not excited about their future, their kids' future, they go for something else. This is what the Democrats have to change. We can't pretend that Donald Trump is the cause of all of our problems. The problems existed before he got to office. He's a symptom, and we have to cure the disease. So what does that cure look like? How do you actually cure this disease that's leaving our kids with this shaky future? If you're here today or saw the TV ads, you know that I'm running for president saying everyone should get $1,000 a month. And I know the first time you saw that, you thought, that's impossible, that's a gimmick, that's too good to be true, that will never happen. I know. But this is not my idea, and it's not a new idea. Thomas Paine was for this at the founding of the country. He called it the citizen's dividend for all Americans. Martin Luther King, whose son I met with in Atlanta, was fighting for this when he was assassinated in 1968. We celebrated his birthday just 2 days ago, but we don't celebrate what he was fighting for. Milton Friedman and 1,000 economists endorsed this in the 60s, passed the US House of Representatives twice under Nixon in 71, and then 11 years later, one state actually passed a dividend where now everyone in that state gets between $1,000 and $2,000 a year. And what state is that? Alaska. How does Alaska pay for it? Oil. And what is the oil of the 21st century? Technology, data, AI, self-driving cars and trucks. Again, our data is being sold and resold for billions of dollars, and we're not seeing a dime of that. If you reach up, and you don't know that this is what we're all about right now, February 3rd. If you reach up and get that value back, bring it to your community, say $1,000 for each of us, where does that money actually go? How much of it would stay right here in Iowa? Most of it, not all of it. You might get your own Netflix password. But most of it would go to car repairs you've been putting off, and daycare expenses, and Little League signups, and local nonprofits, and religious organizations, and Democratic Party dues. This is the trickle-up economy from our people, our families, and our communities up. This would give our kids a real path forward. This would help give rural areas in the state and around the country a real path of prosperity when right now they feel like they're getting sucked dry. And this, I'm going to say, is the only way to do it. I met with your state legislators, presented this, and then some of them came to me and they said, I represent rural areas in Iowa, and this is the only thing I've heard that would make a difference. We have to humanize the economy and make it so that the economy works for us and not the other way around. We have to make the machines work for us and not the other way around. Right now you're getting all these messages about how great the economy is. You've probably seen the headlines, corporate profits record high, GDP record high, unemployment looks great. But if your corporate profits are going up and your life expectancy is going down, which do you listen to? Which do you value? We know which one DC values. DC can't even see people in life expectancy anymore. It just has dollar signs in their eyes. Washington, DC today is the richest city in our country. Think about that. What do they produce? No one knows. And yet business is awfully good. Donald Trump said he wanted to drain the swamp, and that got a lot of support in various quarters. I want to do something a bit different. I want to distribute the swamp. Why do we employ hundreds of thousands of government workers in the most expensive city in the country? Why wouldn't we move some of those jobs to Michigan, Pennsylvania, Ohio, Iowa? We'd save billions, and I would argue that those agencies would make better decisions because they live someplace normal and not in a DC bubble where they just talk to each other all the time. I'm for term limits for members of Congress.
Yes.
And Charles City, you're gonna love this. I know how to pass it. I'll be your president a year from now, and then I'll go to Congress and say, hey guys, your job is to come to Washington, get work done on behalf of the people, and then go home. It should not be to just come here and just try and like crouch here for as long as possible. So we're gonna pass term limits, but we're going to exempt current lawmakers. Do you think they'll pass that?
Yeah.
Oh, they'll pass that the next day. They'll be like, we do this for the American people. But then eventually, they would lose, get phased out, and then you'd have a legislature that's actually much more responsive and dynamic to us and our needs. You'd have people that go there not aiming to be professional legislators, but someone who actually is trying to get the job done and then come home. This is how we retake our government to work for us. This is how we refashion our economy so it revolves around us and our families and not the corporate interests that have bought and sold our government. Corporate profits are up, yes. You know what else are at record highs in addition to corporate profits right now in the United States of America? Stress, financial insecurity, mental illness, depression, student loan debt, substance abuse, overdoses, even suicides. Record lows right now in the United States of America, business formation among young people, getting married, having kids, all the things that you associate with a thriving society are now at multi-decade lows. But hey, corporate profits are up. So you see how messed up things have gotten in our country, where we're being told things are great because you have these 3 headline measurements that have no relationship with us and our families and how we're doing. I know how wrong the measurements are because of my own family. My wife is at home with our 2 boys every day, one of whom is autistic. How much is her work included in our economic measures?
0.
She gets a 0. So does every stay-at-home parent in the country. How about caregivers taking care of aging loved ones? Also a 0. How about volunteers and activists? 0. Coaches and mentors trying to help the next generation? 0. 98% of artists, unfortunately. You know who's in this category now, and it's really destructive? Local journalists. We put almost 2,000 local papers out of business over the last number of months. You know what doesn't function as well if you don't have local news? Democracy. Because how the heck can you vote on what's going on in your community if no one's actually covering what's going on in your community? These are the things that we claim to value most in our lives, in our country, our families, our communities, our democracy, and we're allowing them to get zeroed out one by one by one. The case you have to take to the rest of the country on February 3rd is that economic value and human value are not the same things, and that we have intrinsic value as Americans, as citizens, and as human beings ourselves. That's the fundamental vision. We have to humanize this economy, because if we all try and maintain this status as inputs into this economic machine, we're gonna lose. We're gonna lose on an epic scale. Our towns are gonna lose, our people are gonna lose. Here in Iowa, you're seeing it unfold before your eyes. You saw the mechanization of the agriculture jobs on the farms. You saw the tens of thousands of manufacturing jobs get wiped out. Now you're seeing your Main Street stores and malls start to close. We have to stop this before it hits your highways. By the time it hits your highways, it's going to be very, very late. It's going to be very, very hard to reverse this. Donald Trump's our president today because he had a very, very simple message. He said he wanted to make America great again. What was Hillary Clinton's response? It's already great. Remember that? It's been a long 3 years, I know. But it's now coming to an end. That response did not go over well with many Americans because the problems are real. We have to acknowledge their depth and severity, but then we need real solutions that will actually move our communities forward. What were Donald Trump's solutions? Build a wall, turn the clock back, bring the old jobs back. Charles City, you know we have to do the opposite of these things. We have to turn the clock forward. We have to accelerate our economy and society to rise to the real challenges of the 21st century. We have to evolve in the way we see ourselves and our work and our value. I am the ideal candidate for this job because the opposite of Donald Trump is an Asian man who likes math. Thank you all very much. You may not know this, but math is an acronym, and what does it stand for?
Make America think harder.
Make America think harder, that's right. That is your job on February 3rd. It's your job to move this country not left, not right, but forward. And I know that's just where you will take us. I'd love to take some questions.
We have about 10 minutes for questions.
Andrew, I did an event with you in Waverly at Warburg College. Yeah. A couple questions. I read your book, and that would seal the deal with me. Just an observation of the book, and having read other political books, is that the book is less about you and more about your vision. And I think I appreciate that. That's what changed it for me, because I'm sick of the pious platitudes that get spewed off in political campaigns and stuff like that. So I did a lot of research in UBI, and I believe it does work. I think the research there is solid. So I'm a big proponent of that. But one of the two questions. One of the things that you said in your book that you talk about is social currency, and I've seen a lot of podcasts of you when you talk about a lot of your other ideas. But he has a lot of ideas on his website, a lot of them, like 150. And one of them that just really struck me that would, I think, really connect with Iowa and small towns is your idea of social currency. So first question, 49ers or Chiefs? And the second question is, could you expound a little bit more on your ideas around social currency and how that would work? Because UBI is the first step, and the next step is how do we make meaning and purpose in our lives?
Well, thank you. These are great questions. So I was in California, and someone asked me for a Super Bowl prediction, and I said 49ers because I was there. So I'm on the record saying that, but now I have to say I've changed my mind, and I think it's the Chiefs. So I'm gonna have to go public with that and say, like, sorry, I recant my 49ers prediction. So to me, putting money in our hands will help reinforce the things that we value most, because you can imagine where that money would flow to various nonprofits and other organizations. But then you also want people to have a way of measuring contributions and getting excited to do things in an economy where our time is going to be really like the new coin of the realm, the new currency. And so the goal is to have, and the easiest way to think about this is like American Express points for good deeds or things that help the community. Where like if you volunteer at a shelter or you visit a nursing home or you do various things, then you get these various like points that you can then do fun things with. Like you have, local politicians do something, or sporting figures, or go to a game, or get discounts at a particular place, just as a way to help more positive activities flow through the community. And I believe this in part, well, this isn't my idea. Just so you know, virtually none of my ideas are my ideas. In the sense that, like Martin Luther King championed the freedom dividend, and so it's like it's not mine. The social currency was come up with by Robert F. Kennedy's speechwriter, who said we need to have more ways of having positive value flow through poorer communities. And so what they came up with is a system called time banking, where if you help your neighbor, you get like an hour time credit, then you can give it to someone else, and then they come and babysit your kids. And it's just a way for people to essentially be having positive time contributions circulate through a community. And now with modern technology, you can make that happen much more easily and powerfully. And it's already been used in hundreds of communities around the country very, very positively. So my vision would be that we actually just make that easier for people, just have structures. And this is coming from someone who started and ran a nonprofit for 7 years. How many of y'all work in nonprofits now? How many of you volunteer for a nonprofit? The second one, you should definitely just raise your hand and pretend, because that one's like, are you nice? And you're like, I was nice that one time. So, so looking for ways to essentially help nonprofits find fun and interesting ways to activate people. Because if you start and run a nonprofit, as I have, you realize that you need much, much more in the way of tools to solve the problems in front of you. Because even if you do great work, you're only scratching the surface of the amount of good that you want to do and that the community would benefit from.
One thing I've kind of wondered for a while is, if everybody gets $1,000, like you talked about, what keeps everybody from slightly increasing rent and power bill and now this at the store is a little bit more they know nobody's really hurting for cash, so we can raise the price on this a little bit or that a little bit.
Yeah, so the example I use in Charles City, what's the restaurant that you go to if it was like a mild special occasion?
Bowling alley.
The pub? All right, I'll just say the pub. All right, so let's say the pub right now charges you $12 for a meal or something like that. And then after I'm president, freedom dividend starts going out, everyone's in a good mood, everyone's like, yeah, let's go to the pub. So you go to the pub, and then instead of $12, it's $18. What's your reaction? You're like, this thing was $12 last week. You're not gonna be like, oh, I'm cool with this. Just because if you have this $1,000 a month, it doesn't make you any less budget conscious or value conscious, and it doesn't lower your ability to actually vote with your feet and go someplace and make sure that you're getting a deal. And so all it takes is really any business to maintain relatively normal pricing, and then the rest of them have to too. This is just if you're still price sensitive and there's still a competition for your dollar. Now there are three core sources of inflation in American life that have been making us miserable. And what are they? Housing, education, healthcare. And if you think about those three, they're actually not markets that are working properly. because healthcare, they just ratchet up the costs every single year. And one of the things, you should all know, I'm for universal healthcare. We need to get healthcare off your backs and off of the backs of families and businesses. And we can afford it, eminently. I'm the numbers guy. You would not believe how much we're spending on healthcare right now to very, very poor results. And the reason why it's breaking our back is because their business model is just to ratchet up the prices every year. And the system's not designed to make us stronger and healthier. What's it designed for? Revenue and profits for the drug companies, the insurance companies, and the device companies. So you have to attack healthcare inflation at the source for what it is. You have to attack the inflation of education costs. Why the heck did college get 2.5 times more expensive? Did it get 2.5 times better? No. Did it hire lots more professors? Also no. So what the heck is going on? I'll tell you what's going on. The administrator to student ratio has gone up 150% while the price has gone up 250%. So a lot of the driver is just bureaucratic complexity on the part of the schools. So you have to attack that, and then you have to try and provide incentives for more affordable housing options. But if you keep those three things in check, inflation won't occur in other parts of the economy because we're all still price sensitive. And one data point I would use, and this is a data point on multiple levels, do you all remember voting for the $4 trillion bailout of Wall Street 12 years ago? No. None of us ever voted for that. But then one fear you might have is like, wait, we just gave those guys $4 trillion, won't there be inflation? And there was not meaningful inflation. Money supply and buying power is not really driving inflation in that way. It's dysfunctional markets and education, healthcare, and housing. On an aside, if you had a choice between bailing out the banks and keeping Americans in their homes, which would you have chosen? Keep Americans in their homes. I was so struck by how corrupt that decision was that I quit my job and started a nonprofit and ran it for 7 years just to try and wash off the stench. And I had nothing to do with it. I was just in the vicinity, but it still stank so bad. I was like, oh my gosh, like this is actually what we're having people do, like go to Wall Street and create mortgage-backed securities that tank the economy, and then when it goes bad, then they're like, oh, who could know? Give me my money still. The whole thing was so dirty, and so I wanted to do something positive. So I spent 7 years helping young entrepreneurs create thousands of jobs in cities around the country that could use a boost. But we're at the same point now. The corruption with the financial crisis, it's ongoing. So you can see it with the fact that drug companies, like all the corporate interests that are bought and sold the place. So this is a very, very extended way of saying that putting money into our hands will not cause prices to go wild, and the money supply won't either.
We have time for one more question here to Andrews, right?
Thank you for coming to Floyd County. My question regards the agricultural policies that you might be involved in. Currently in Floyd County, we have $126 million worth of income coming in from livestock production and $154 million coming in from crop production. What is your ag policy as it relates to ethanol, livestock, and other agricultural interests?
That's a great question. I had the pleasure of visiting an ethanol plant. It was very impressive. I'm sold on ethanol as a part of the future that we should be investing in. I'm for helping our agricultural producers and livestock and crops actually be globally competitive, certainly not slap tariffs on you that have absolutely nothing to do with you. This trade war, why was this trade war with China originated? Because they were ripping off our intellectual property. Does that have anything to do with farmers in Iowa? No, like why the heck are we dragging you into this? One of the issues that farmers have been talking to me about in this state is that they feel like small family farms cannot compete with these very large concerns that have cost advantages and often access to different types of resources and mechanization. And the family farmers have said, we can't compete and we're having succession problems because if we want to pass the farm on to our kids, the kids aren't sure that they want to go through what we went through. And so we have to consider selling the farm at a fraction of its value to the megacorp that's now just gobbling up the farms. And to me, that small farmer reminds me of me as like a business person or small entrepreneur, where, right, and that's representative of what's happening in the economy writ large, which is you have this consolidation in many of our industries. You can see it with retail, you can see it with banks, and you can see it with agriculture. So I would try and tailor subsidies to try and keep smaller farms cost competitive so they don't feel like they have to, frankly, sell and sell at less than they are actually worth to these bigger companies. But I'm a huge champion of the agricultural sector in our country because I think that being able to feed yourself is very, very fundamental in a country. And in the face of climate change, we're going to need our agricultural sector to be front and center.
Where's livestock in that formula?
I like meat. I eat it regularly. I do think that if you're going to try and shift towards renewable source of energy, then you would want to have some kind of carbon tax, which would fall at least like at a tiny, tiny bit on livestock producers. But I did the math, and it's very, very marginal. Most all of any kind of carbon or emissions tax falls on the real emitters. So who's that? It's the fossil fuel companies, the big industrial concerns. But obviously, you know, we're going to be producing livestock and making a lot of money off of it for decades and generations to come. Thank you all so much, Charles City. If this is a vision that you're in support, we need you to caucus for this campaign on February 3rd. We need you to raise your hand, not raise your hand right now physically, because that's for February 3rd. But we need you to let the team know that you're willing to commit to caucus for the campaign, and then we'll follow up with you. Let's make history together and leave our kids a future we can be proud of. Thank you all so much.
Thank you all for coming out. Andrew's got some press to do, and then if anybody wants a picture with him, line up where Lacey's at, waving her hand, along the side of the window, along the outside of the room, and then just exit where I'm standing right now. So hang tight for just a few minutes. Anybody that wants a picture is welcome to have one.
Guys, we have a donation goal of $1 million by 11:59 p.m. tonight. And the only way it happens is if all of you step up to the plate right now and donate to Andrew Yang through the yanggame.com. That way we can track your donations, and whoever has the highest donation during the stream during the stream will get a shout out from Andrew Yang. The current donation leader is Vivian at $150. Guys, we need your support. The new ads in Iowa will only launch if we raise the $1 million by 11:59 p.m. tonight. We are currently at 300,000 out of $1 million. All donations through the yanggame.com. That's THEYANGGAME.com. Will count directly towards the goal. We need your support. By the end of this selfie line, whoever has the highest donation through the link, the secure ActBlue link, will get a shout out on camera from Andrew Yang. So let's see our donations so far. Thank you, Deborah, for the $20 donation to Andrew Yang through the yanggame.com donation link. Thank you, Juan, for the $10 donation to Andrew Yang through the yanggame.com donation link. Thank you, Angela, for the $5 donation to Andrew Yang through the yanggame.com donation link. Thank you, David, for the $1 donation to Andrew Yang through the yanggame.com donation link. Thank you, Jennifer, for the $50 donation to Andrew Yang through the yanggame.com donation link. Thank you, Jesse, for the $1 donation to Andrew Yang through the yanggame.com donation link. Thank you, Devkey, for the $5 donation to Andrew Yang through the yanggame.com donation link. Thank you, Vivian, our current donation leader, for the shout out from Andrew for the at $150 through the yanggame.com donation link. Thank you, Everly, for the $25 donation, Andrew Yang through the yanggame.com donation link. Thank you, Thai, for the $25 donation, Andrew Yang through the yanggame.com donation link. Thank you, Tyson, for the $25 donation, Andrew Yang through the yanggame.com donation link. Thank you, Justin, for the $100 donation, Andrew Yang through the yanggame.com donation link. I'm about to interview people in a sec, by the way. Thank you, Jai Key, for the $50 donation to Andrew Yang through the yanggame.com donation link. Thank you, Casey, for the $50 donation to Andrew Yang through the yanggame.com donation link. Thank you, Josephine, for the $25 donation. Maureen, for the $50 donation. Lisa, for the $10 donation. Chad, for the $10 donation. Richard, for the $50 donation. Caitlin, for the $3 donation. Brian, for the $10 donation. Rodolfo, for the $25 donation. Misha, for the $5 donation. Kelly, for the $25 donation. Joel, for the $25 donation. Binayak, for the $25 donation. Kim, for the $5 donation. Kami for the $5 donation. Non for the $5 donation. Jim for the $10 donation. Skylar for the $10 donation. Lee for the $50 donation. Isaiah for the $42.69 donation. Lynn for the $10 donation. Kelvin for the $10 donation. Edward for the $100 donation. Jim for the $50 donation. Lyle for the $10 donation. Sufin for the $50 donation. And I think that catches us up. We need your financial support, guys. We need to give Iowa for Yang everything we have, and it only happens with your small dollar donations. Andrew Yang does not accept corporate PAC money, which means he relies on all of you to help support his campaign. Excuse me, sir, a question.
Yes.
Would you mind answering a few questions on camera about what you thought of the event?
Or the campaign?
No, I'm
You're a Yang Ganger.
Yeah. You ever heard of the Zach and Matt show?
Is that you?
Yep.
Oh, fabulous.
Yeah.
I think I've been following some of the different outlets for Yang Gang. So.
Yeah, we try to upload like every single thing that Andrew Yang does.
An event that I was with Andrew.
Yeah, at Wartburg College. Yeah, yep. I heard you say that, and we just uploaded that finally like a week ago.
Yeah, thanks for doing that.
Yeah, no problem. So, how did you first hear about Andrew?
What's that?
How'd you first hear about Andrew?
I like a lot of people. I was going to bed and I was listening to the Joe Rogan podcast, and his was the next one up, and I listened to it. And he talked very differently about the issues and the problems, and it led me to read his book. And I read his book, and I remember feeling I was scared. Can I say shit on
You
that?
can say anything.
Yeah, okay. Good.
First
It's
Amendment.
YouTube. Yeah, First Amendment. I was scared shitless at the first part of the book when he talked about automation and all these changes and this massive disruption of the fourth industrial revolution. I have been following these trends for some time, and I said, this guy gets it. And so I read the second half of the book about his solutions, and Freedom Dividend, which is a UBI, and UBI I've done a lot of research on, and I've worked the numbers myself. I double-checked his numbers, and I looked at his sourcing in his book, and I said, this guy has something. I was once a Republican and had never been a Democrat, and I said, I got to give this guy a try. And so what happened after that is I said, I'm going to give him $20. And I looked at his policies online. I gave him $20, and people from the campaign were starting to call me and wanting to hear what I have to think about things, and that just kind of roped me in. And I did an event with him at Wartburg College, and I said, I'm going to do whatever I can to help this
So
guy.
that was you on stage
I was on
helping
stage,
with the
yes.
interview.
Yeah.
Okay, what is your name?
Adam Sterling.
Adam.
I'm a Lutheran pastor in West Union, Iowa.
Awesome.
And I've been somewhat apolitical. I've always observed it, but I never participated in it. I've seen the corruption on both sides of the spectrum, and I want something completely different. And I find that with Andrew. I think he's a once-in-a-lifetime candidate.
Do you mind if I asked who you voted for in 2016?
Gary Johnson.
Gary Johnson, third party.
Well, yeah, it's libertarian. I find myself. I'm not into the libertarian ideology as much as the thinking around how they think, and think through solutions and value and. But I usually participate in the general election. I've never caucused before in my life.
And this will be the first
So
time?
yeah, I don't know how many people are like this with me. That are like this.
I think there's a lot. I think Andrew's message has inspired a lot of people to step up in ways that they usually wouldn't step up. Like me, for example, if you had told me a year ago, I'd be going around like, when he's not in Iowa, I'm like knocking on doors, and like every single hotel like manager and cashier, I try to tell them about Andrew. If you had told me that a year ago, I would have told you you were crazy. So
Yeah.
He inspires people to do things that they would have never thought they would do.
I think he has a humility about him, but the other thing that really attracts me is that it's not about him. As I said, I read his book, and I read some of the other political books, even Republican books, and they're always talking about themselves. And he doesn't insult my intelligence by falling into all these platitudes that have absolutely no meaning whatsoever. But he certainly offers some solutions and new ways of thinking about things. And I said, this is what we need. And he just needs to get through the democratic system somehow.
Yep.
And we need to figure out how to do that. And if I can help in any way I can. So I'm living proof that I think there's some movement bubbling. In the Yang Gang, I've kind of gotten involved with some of the social media stuff with Facebook and stuff, and the positivity and the creativity that comes out of them is inspiring. And I said that there's something new and different happening, and I just wanted to be a part of it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Appreciate you a lot. Mind if I ask? Matthew.
Matthew.
Mind if I ask you one final question?
Sure.
So you said that after you read Andrew's book and looked into his policies, you donated $20. So there's currently a donation goal tonight to raise $1 million.
I already contributed.
Awesome. To launch ads in Iowa.
I gave $45 to his campaign on his birthday because he's my age.
Heck yeah.
So he's 5 days older than me.
So there's like 1,000 people watching, and I'm trying to get them all to donate whatever they can, whether it's $1, $2, $200.
If I can give it, please donate to this campaign. I think it's worth it in multiple ways. I believe he's going to make the White House. I don't think the polls can grasp the energy and the undercurrent that is coming up. And hopefully we can see that and ignore the polls, give money, help them out. Let's make this final message to Iowa before February 2nd, right?
February 3rd.
February 3rd, I'm sorry. That's a Tuesday, right?
I'm not completely sure on the day.
I plan on showing up at the caucus. For the first time in my life, I became a Democrat. And I don't know how long I'm going to stay there, but
so someone like you would never get polled in the first place.
I would never get polled in the first place.
And I would never get polled either because I'm only 20 and they don't poll people who haven't voted in an election before.
Absolutely.
So I definitely think the polls are under capturing the support. Really appreciate you again.
Thank you for the volunteer work that you do. That want to be part of this movement, and that's inspiring me to see your generation really step forward.
Thanks, man. Appreciate it.
You guys are gonna save the future.
I hope so.
Thank you.
Take care. Okay, we have some donations. Ooh, breaking news. We have a new donation leader. Steve is now the donation leader at $152. Let me send out a tweet saying that Steve is now the donation leader. Steve is now the donation leader at $152. Thank you, Stephen, for the $11.11 donation to Andrew Yang. Thank you, Stanley, for the $10 donation to Andrew Yang. Thank you, Christopher, for the $5 donation to Andrew Yang. Thank you, Ricardo, for the $10 donation to Andrew Yang. Thank you, Jonathan, for the $5 donation to Andrew Yang. Thank you, Marianne, for the $25 donation to Andrew Yang. Thank you, Steve, for the $152 donation to Andrew Yang. Steve, you are the donation shout-out leader. The selfie line is getting shorter, which means it is time to donate. Thank you, Polo, for the $5 donation to Andrew Yang. Thank you, Mary Ann, for the $10 donation to Andrew Yang. Thank you, Ari, for the $25 donation to Andrew Yang. Thank you, Deborah. No, thank you, Deborah, for the $20 donation to Andrew Yang. I think that catches us up. Let me pull out this So guys, this is what we need. If you look here, we have a goal deadline, January 22nd, that's today, at 11:59 p.m. Eastern Time, to raise $1 million. And right now, we've only raised $292,672. So if you go to the link that is on screen right here at theyanggame.com, every single donation through that link counts towards the goal. We are relying on all of you to power this movement, to bring us forward, not left, not right, but forward. Thank you, Steve, for the $25 donation to Andrew Yang through the yanggame.com donation link. I'll be right back. Thank you, Franny, for the $5 donation to Andrew Yang through the yanggame.com donation link.
Thanks so much.
I like how they're subtle, so no one really sees them.
Right.
But if you do pay attention, it's like a...
That's that side.
Thank you, Darla, for the $5 donation to Andrew Yang through the yanggame.com donation link. Thank you, Christopher, for the $5 donation to Andrew Yang. Thank you, Zhao Shun. I've seen your name before. For the $10 donation to Andrew Yang. Thank you, Randy, for the $10 donation to Andrew Yang. Thank you, Tim, for the $25 donation to Andrew Yang. Thank you, Anthony, for the $1 donation to Andrew Yang. Thank you, David, for the $4.20 donation to Andrew Yang. Thank you, Franny, for the $5 donation to Andrew Yang. Did I say Stanley? Thank you, Stanley, for the $10 donation to Andrew Yang. Can we get a donation for that, please? Someone.
I love those words. What? I only talk to you. Is that what you just
Breaking news, we have a new donation leader. Amal has just donated $175. Guys, this is the campaign manager.
TV companies run ads.
This is the campaign manager, and he's demanding that you give your hard-earned money to the campaign right now. He maxed out. He needs your help, so donate right now. Amal is now the donation leader at $175. Also, thank you, Tuan, for the $20 donation to Andrew Yang. Did I say Christopher for the $5 donation to Andrew Yang? Thank you, New Guyan, for the $25 donation to Andrew Yang.
Who's the top donor today?
Right now, it's Amal.
Amal?
Amal at $175.
Oh, hell yeah. Thank you, Amal.
Could you give us in 30 seconds your best pitch on why it's important to donate to the campaign?
Well, because on the ballot, we can eradicate poverty. It's important. Do you want $1,000? Do I want $1,000? We all could use $1,000. I sure would pay off my student loans. What would you do with that money? Maybe buy some diapers, pay for housing. It's important for everyone, and yeah, that's what we need.
All right.
What would you do with $1,000 a month?
Buy new camera gear.
There you go.
Yeah.
And I mean, y'all are going everywhere. You guys, the tripod's been used and well used.
Yeah, I have a second one in the car, but it's broken, and this one's broken as well. So.
Well, I couldn't tell.
Yeah, it does its job.
It does its job. All right, I'll see you guys at the next event.
Thank you, Jessica.
Bye.
Also, you need to take the cups.
Take the cups and what else?
And you can hold the OJ and make sure you get some of those.
Thank you, Steve, for another $25 donation. Thank you, Blong, for the $160 donation. But it looks like Amal is our winner.
I'm sorry.
So we got to get a shout out for Amal.
Tesla's amazing and underappreciated.
369 now, yeah, 369.
To me, like begins at birth, and then when the mom determines when the mom determines.
Wait, never mind. We have a new donation leader, Lanny. But he came in late, so we're gonna get Lanny and Vivian.
One last one? Very quick, thank you. Bus kicked off in that whole...
Because I already tweeted out that Amal wins. So it's gonna be Amal and Lanny.
This bus is pretty good.
Making it in the weather.
Well, thank you for making it out.
You bet. Thank you.
Let's do this.
Can we get 2 shout outs for Amal and Lanny?
Sure thing. Hello, Amal and Lanny. Thank you so much for the support. You're right here with us in Charles City. Really, thank you enough. Let's grow and grow and then peak and shock the world on Feb 3. And you're making it happen. Thank you both. Amal and Lenny.
Thanks, Andrew.
Thank you.
I don't know how that works. So he came to our hotel and we were able
Okay, stream.
His phone survived.
He was able to keep swimming.
Yeah, I gotta
Let me get you some merch.
Okay.
What did you want exactly?
Well, I'm just basically at every event, I'm just trying to pass out as much like stuff like bumper stickers or like hats or like whatever possible. Because it's really easy to take stuff right after they should be banned.
Oh, smart. Let me give you I'll give you a couple of these because you're right. If you want to give us some pins or buttons. Did you get talking? Yeah. Let me relate to that. What is it?
It's a template for the restructuring of the education system that I don't think that.
Thanks.
See, maybe over in Iowa, so there's any other events, are there opportunities? Oh, what's your Instagram?
ZACHANDMATTSHOW.
That's how
It's gonna be, it's the username. ANDMATTSHOW. All right, YouTube stream. This is ending, but we'll see you at the next event at 11:30.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. If you can.